occurred in the past 6 months. The wife of one of his business associates apparently hadn't realized Lynn was nearby when she'd made her remarks about Ed's latest spending spree. Or perhaps she had, Lynn thought cynically. "Don't talk about your father that way," she admonished Lexi now, albeit half-heartedly. She didn't want her children to start hating their father, but she wasn't quite prepared to sing his praises either. Every single day felt like a balancing act between her own ragged emotions and her children's needs. No matter how upbeat she pretended to be, lately it seemed she wasn't fooling anyone. Lexi's eyes filled with tears, though it was impossible to tell if she was reacting to Lynn's stern admonition or to her own panic. "It's really bad, isn't it?" "Bad enough," Lynn admitted carefully. She gave Lexi's hand a squeeze. "But this is a temporary blip, sweetheart. It will get sorted out, I promise." "Are we going to have to move?" Lexi asked, giving voice to what was obviously her greatest fear. Lynn wasn't one to sugarcoat bad news, though she'd hoped to have a plan in place before revealing the sad truth. "More than likely," she said quietly. Though she'd been counting on Helen Decatur Whitney, who was fierce when it came to getting the best possible settlement for her clients, she also knew that even Helen couldn't work miracles. Still, she tried to reassure her daughter. "Hopefully, Helen will be able to work this out in court before it comes to that. But I won't lie to you. Giving up the house is a real possibility." "But I love it here," Lexi protested with a sniff. "It's a great house, and my best friend lives right next door." Then, apparently seeing something in Lynn's face, she squared her shoulders. "But it'll be okay." She gave her mother a plaintive look that nearly shredded what was left of Lynn's heart. "Won't it? As long as you, Jeremy, and I are together, it will be okay," she vowed. She would do everything in her power to see that it was. Right now, though, with unpaid bills and little money, she was feeling pretty darn powerless. For a woman who'd always felt confident and in control, that was a new sensation, one she didn't much like. Just one more thing to lay at Ed's feet when she was doling out blame. Contractor Mitch Franklin had been working on a new edition for Raylene and Carter Rollins for a few weeks now. He'd started in late fall, taken only a brief break during the holidays, and was hoping to have every interior detail finished for them in time for the annual Memorial Day party the couple hosted for all their friends. Normally, winters in Serenity tended to be mild, with only a few days when the weather was too bad for construction. But this year had been a nasty exception, with bitter cold and more snow and ice storms than he could remember in a lifetime here in South Carolina. While the snow and ice seldom lasted, he was still further behind schedule than he liked. With various other jobs he was finishing up, mostly interior work, Mitch was proud that he'd kept his crew working enough to put paychecks in their pockets. Now, though, the crunch was on to get this addition built. To keep costs in check, he had his men working the usual number of hours, but he'd gotten into the habit of putting in a lot of overtime. He had a reputation for bringing his jobs in on time, and he didn't want this to be an exception. Of course, there were other things motivating him as well. For one thing, Raylene was an amazing cook who usually invited him to join the family for a meal if he was still hanging around at dinner time. For another, his home felt way too empty without his wife, who'd been killed by a drunk driver a year ago. It had been bad enough with his 2 boys away at school, but with Amy gone too, he could barely stand to be in his house, even to sleep. The bed he'd shared with his wife for 22 years was way too cold and lonely. His sons were exactly where they needed to be, in college and living their lives. But he was at loose ends way more than he liked. Raylene, Carter, and Carter's younger sisters were filling a huge gaping hole in Mitch's life.